Hello and welcome to the Geeks Review. I'm Royce.
And I'm Joshua.
We're going to be discussing the Pixar film Soul. This is from the same studio behind Toy Story, Inside Out and The Incredibles. It's available to watch for free on Disney+. This film stars Jamie Foxx as Joe Gardner, a middle school band teacher and aspiring jazz musician who finally gets a chance to play with an idol of his, only to accidentally have an accident.
Yeah.
Falls down a manhole. And he has an out-of-body experience where his soul is sent to the great beyond and the great before, where he's mistaken for someone else and assigned a potential soul to be number 22, played by Tina Fey. When they realise the predicament that he's in, they try to get back to Earth, only with mixed results.
Very mixed results.
Joshua, what do you think of this film?
I think Pixar's trying to tell us something.
Yes.
Because we've gone through a lot of different films. Coco, which was about life.
Yep.
Then they have Inside Out, which is about, growing as
Your
a
mind.
person. Your person. And now we've got a film just about death.
Yes.
It's harrowing, but it's a really interesting film. It gives you a little bit of existentialism.
Oh, it's very existential, yes.
Yeah.
I thought Inside Out was out there.
Yeah, no, this is straight up Kubrick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying soul to be, and you are probably listening to this going, what does that mean? And it has such a dense lore to it.
It compacts it.
It makes it understandable. It gets through it. But it's sort of like, wow, that's something that's so out there. And, okay, the idea is that souls are created and they are embodied with attributes and they are then...
have to go through this rigorous process to be ready to be sent to Earth.
And assign themselves to people and come to define who that person is, at least within this lore. And number 22, who is said to be like the 22nd soul that was ever created, because apparently you have like another soul who was mentioned, and it's something like several hundred billion, which gives you an idea of how long she's been around for. She's a soul who doesn't want to be bogged down with living.
Want to go to Earth.
No, and she's been...
And she said so many different soul mentors.
Yeah, from Freud to
Aristotle.
Madame Curie, Aristotle. Abraham Lincoln pops up here and there.
Yeah.
It's wacky.
It is.
And it's a really interesting visual style.
Oh, I love the visual style. Like, not so much for Earth. Earth is very Pixar-like,
Yes.
realistic but still cartoony-ish. The afterlife, the great beyond and all that, it's so... I gripped the sides of my chair as I was watching this, just going, what the is this,
It is, yeah.
It's 2D, but yet it's 3D.
Yeah, they've gone and got these, they're like line drawings.
Yes.
But they move in the 3D and they wrap around and they untie and shape themselves. Yes. I really like
the souls look 3D, but they feel 2D.
They've got like a chromic aberration effect to them, so they're sort of fuzzy, but then they've gone and got like cartoony eyes and other elements, which is really unique and out there. And I sort of thought, is this going to be the entire film? And if so, that would have been a really bold choice, considering these animated films have been so intent on pushing to be real, to be photorealistic. And yeah, the real world stuff is insanely photorealistic, even though you've got these stylized characters. The fact they've got pores and subsurface scattering to their skin,
very powerful, of course, for Pixar.
Yeah.
Showing how far they've come.
Comparing this very briefly to the new DreamWorks movie, The Croods.
Yes.
Which has humanoid characters. And it's leagues above. I mean, not to say DreamWorks is... But it's sort of like Pixar have really just gone insane with the amount of detail they can pack into this film.
They go above and beyond.
But then the fact that they go spend time with these stylized characters, which are so just out there. There's nothing to base them on in real life. Which is really cool. I like that.
And it's just, wow. The set pieces for the afterlife are just... I'm sorry, it's all coming back to me. It's boggling the mind, the sea of thought where where you see other souls, but they're just people who are alive and they're in the zone. It's where you go when, you're in the zone.
Hmm.
And you've got these dudes that just go around on this hippie pirate ship and rescue lost souls who have kind of just fallen into a rut and sort of use the power of positive thinking to break them out, man.
Yeah, this hippie guy, he's a sign twirler.
Yeah, Moonview, played by Graham Norton.
Graham Norton of the Graham Norton Show. Hello! This is crazy. And yeah, that was crazy. And how he astral projects, and that his soul goes to this plane and he helps them. And when they do get back to the real world, about 40 minutes into this film, Joe's soul accidentally goes into... He's been recovered. Okay, we'll say this. He fell down a manhole into the sewer.
Yeah, they found the body.
He's in a coma. And you're sort of worrying, like, wow, has he died? This is quite dark. They're saying that he's dead or something.
Yeah.
But he's in a coma. He's, in hospital. He's got a therapy cat. He and 22 fall into the real world, and their souls go into... 22 goes into him.
And he goes into the cat. And only 22 can understand him. Hijinks ensue.
Yes, very much so. I really liked that.
It was.
I mean, that was what really sold the film for me. I mean, the astral stuff is just like so out there, so visually different and insane. If there's one thing I wasn't terribly keen about with this film, it was maybe the music. I think it's just my personal taste. It was the sort of dreamy, airy, sort of like synth, like...
Oh, yeah.
It's not my favourite music.
I did enjoy it a little bit, but I will agree it did make me a little drowsy.
Yeah, it is that. It really reminds me of like the old video game Ratchet and Clank, where you'd go to some areas where they just have like that ambient loop playing, and you'd have some sort of spacey... Oh, it was a bit weird. But the jazz music itself, like the piano music, and all fantastic. Hey?
Cream.
Yeah. Great stuff. And you got a mixture of like both real people, where you go to see like Louis Armstrong and stuff.
Yes.
And they're real. As they look as they do in the real world.
You almost you can reach out and touch them.
Yes. And then you've got super stylized characters like Joe and that. And they blend together, they work.
Yeah.
And I really like their performances. Like, it's quite funny as well, you got Amy Poehler, who was in Inside Out, and she's known for her duo with Tina Fey, and now Tina Fey's in this one also playing sort of an abstract concept like Joy. So,
more of an abstract construct, though.
Yeah, this is very abstract.
I gotta stop thinking about that afterlife stuff, man. It's actually freaking me out.
Great cast as well.
Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Graham Norton, and just a bunch of others.
Richard Ayoade, best known as Moss from the IT Crowd. He plays one of these soul,
Jerry. Councillor Jerry.
Meanwhile, Terry is played by Rachel House, New Zealand actor from Hunt for the Wilder People and Thor Ragnarok. She's got a great voice. Yeah. And she was just... If there is a villain in this film, it's probably her and 22 to a degree, and even Joe himself. There is no antagonist here.
No, like all Pixar films, it's the story. There is no protag and tag.
Yeah.
It's the journey that these characters are set upon.
Yeah, you do kind of have that moment in that final half hour where 22 kind of realises the joy of actually living and has experienced life perhaps more fully in those few hours than Joe ever did. Yes. And then decides, well, no, I want to keep this body. And you have that moment, and then it's like, oh, okay, slight antagonism, but then they sort of have to come to terms with the situation they're in. And the ending, we're not going to talk too much about the ending, but I was really quite concerned with that ending. I think that's really dark, which I was worried about throughout this entire film, but you do have some reprieve.
Yeah.
Do you think it was detrimental to its final thing, or hopeful?
It is hopeful, but at the same time, I'm a little...
Yeah.
It's almost giving him what he wants, but at the same time, Joe was a real ass.
He was a bit, but he does learn.
He does learn, and, he gets the eventual redemption. I don't know. This whole film is just... This is your brain. This is your brain on the soul.
Yes. Yeah. How do you rank this then among... not to wrap it up, but, How do you rank this among other Pixar films? Because this is the first Pixar film in a long time I've seen that's really grabbed me and gone like, wow, I really like this.
This is definitely high for me. Pixar doing its experimental stuff, but still having the heart and, well, soul
Yes.
of what it is, a family picture. Dealing with themes that normally most films would go, we can do that, but we'll botch it.
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, I haven't seen all the newest films. I haven't seen The Good Dinosaur. I haven't seen Coco. But, you know, even returns to, like, you know, Monsters, Inc. or The Incredibles or Finding Nemo, Finding Dory.
Yeah.
You know, those were sort of crowd-pleasing. They're like, oh, yeah, that's nice, that's nice. Less so for Monsters, I will say. That was a bit...
Yeah, I'd be more on the Finding Dory. That was a bit...
Yeah, I like the otters. The otters were cute.
Yeah, everyone likes otters though.
Yeah, true.
Bastards.
But this was, I think, probably since Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't such a big fan of Inside Out, and I didn't really like Up, if I'm honest. And it's probably
You're
controversial.
making some very powerful enemies here today on the internet, my friend.
Yeah, I think with Up, the opening is the strongest bit, because everyone talks about the opening and never talk about the rest of the film.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, what's the plot of Up? I mean, there's balloons in the house, and there's an old man, and there's a kid, and there's a dog that talks.
It's not scattering his wife's ashes, but he wants to go to the place that he and his wife dreamed about, you know?
Yeah, and I mean,
the
he
adventures
meets...
they want to have as a kid.
And him finally taking that adventure.
Only to get caught up with, you know, this...
Inside Out, I found a bit like there was too much contradictory sort of stuff. Like, you know, it was showing her go through proper mood swings where she's sliding down, you know, the railing on some stairs, and then, like, sadness takes over and she immediately, like... She's like bipolar, and she just becomes like incredibly depressed out of nowhere. It was sort of playing a bit fast and loose, and this feels a bit more concrete.
It does.
Even though it is such an abstract concept where they literally make their own rules.
I want to stop thinking about that stuff, man.
Yeah, it's a visual treat, and it's free to watch.
It's, well, unless you put, when you pay the subscription, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're still offering that free week, aren't they? On
Yeah,
Disney
they are.
Plus.
And I think that's more than enough to get through this.
Yeah, watch that. Watch The Mandalorian. And then stick around as I have. As we all
Plug in
have.
here, you know. Come for one thing, stay for the rest.
Yeah. This is really good.
It is.
I mean, we just keep saying that.
I'm mentally freaking out still about the afterlife portions because they do handle this abstractity and existentialism so well, but managed to, you know, go, it's like, this is how it might be, and then my brain's just going, souls,
Yes.
creation, beyond, before.
Anyway, Soul is a...
Soul is a good film, go watch it, just, don't do drugs, kids.
No, just watch this.
Just watch it.
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, man.
Once again, we're joined in the studio by Matt and Holly. Welcome back, you two.
Hello.
You've got your own thoughts on the movie Soul?
Yes. Well, first of all, my favourite thing about the movie Soul is that it's completely broken the Pixar theory.
Yes.
Because Soul and Coco cannot exist in the same universe.
Yes, Josh was actually mentioning how all these films have different like viewpoints and ideologies, and how Pixar must be trying to say something.
Yeah, which is really cool, and like showing the diversity of people who are accepted into the great beyond and the great before. But yeah, Coco and Soul, if they are set within the Pixar theory, cannot exist simultaneously. It is not possible for those two worlds to be in the same area because their death, their way of having after death is completely different. Like, the only thing that I could think of would be if the final death from Coco were to be their ticket to the great beyond in Soul.
But then only Spanish people.
Yes.
Is it, what's the nationality of Coco? Is it?
Well, I think it's set
Mexican?
in Mexico, but it is like anyone who believes in
Yeah, only
Los Dias Muertos.
people of that culture.
If I just butchered that, I'm really sorry.
Only people of that culture get to go.
Yeah,
Have
it's
a-
like only people from that culture get to have that final time before their final death, before the
Everyone
Soul
else
afterlife.
goes straight to the conveyor belt.
Soul was a really beautiful film. And I really liked that it wasn't a Pixar movie that I cried at. Like, I still got emotional. But it wasn't the traditional, like, you know, I heard about Soul and Matt and I's both, our immediate thoughts were, well, we're ready to cry because...
So many, like every Pixar movie makes you cry.
And I'm a big Disney nerd and a big Pixar nerd, and I'm a sucker for those films. I did not shed a single tear because I was so lost in thought about how brilliant this film was and how much its message was so meaningful to so many people. And how well it was done.
Yeah. I loved the idea that souls are created and then, you know, kind of given traits and then put into anyone. I love that. It's very beautiful. And I love the themes of accepting when it's your time to go and that kind of thing. Because I think, and Coco did this as well, kind of demystifying and kind of, I mean, you can't really escape how scary death is. You can't, but the films, I think, go a long way to put a positive spin on it.
Well, it was like how Inside Out was designed, a lot of it, to help younger people to understand their emotions and to accept that they were going to happen. Because the whole point of Inside Out is that you don't understand the emotions. They have their own things going on. But it's to accept that they're happening and to try and help people who feel like that. So with Soul and Coco, a big premise is that of at least Coco is memory and what you do with your life and how that affects later generations. And it's the same with Soul. Like, it's about what you achieve within your life. When it's your time to go, will you look back on your life and be happy with what you've done? And I was at first I wasn't sure about the ending. I'll say that. I felt mixed feelings about the ending because I was happy that it ended the way that it did with Joe getting another chance because honestly, after all the shit that he went through, I would say that he deserved another chance too. Thank you, Richard. Also, I would have been more than happy to see him accept his fate.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was going to go that way. And I was like, okay, wow, this is going to hit it. But then, nice ending, which was earned, I think. And
yeah,
fits.
but I would, as you said, I would have been equally happy with him because he did die.
Yeah.
Like, and it was his fault that he died. So, like, I would have been happy with him accepting his fate. But, you know, there were too many people on Earth who, you know, we would have had to miss him, and it wouldn't have been the right tone for the end of the story.
Yeah.
An alternate ending that I could have seen work out would have been him accepting it and moving on to the great beyond to then be recycled and put in the great before, which is kind of partially the vibe. When they don't become mentors, I think that was the idea. Like, when they don't become mentors, they eventually get recycled and be put into a new body.
Did it say that?
I think so. I think that's what they were explaining in the Great Before. But I would have been happy with alternate ending. He accepts his fate, goes into the light, and we end on a shot of whatever 22's new life would have been. That would have also made me happy because then you see... Because you kind of... 22 kind of was like, yeah, I can go down now, happy, cool, bye. And then yeeted, and it was a beautiful emotional moment. And then we didn't really see what happened to 22 after that, which I suppose is part of it, and it's poignant. Like, you don't know where 22 ended up.
Yeah.
But 22 was going to go have a life. So I would have been happy with the ending that we got, or an alternate one where Joe accepts his fate. They don't give him another chance, and 22 lives their life.
Well, it's an interesting thing about this because it is their soul, it is their essence of who they are, but it's with that, all their memories, it would seem as well. So maybe what if the ending had been Joe lived while his soul passed on, 22's went into him instead. But when they're running around New York, as you know, Joe and the cat, it's very much Joe's memories inside the cat's mind, and 22 has absolutely no idea what Joe's life is like. You know, it's not like a new driver into the vehicle. It's like it's gutting everything and then putting something else new in.
And then putting a new driver in.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. So that probably would have broken the rules somewhat. Although it did also say that, you know, there were people who were just having new souls like dropped into them, and then you see the guy who's at the stock market who suddenly has a new lease of life. And
Well, because that's his soul.
It was his own soul.
Yeah,
right?
that was his own soul that they
I wasn't
rescued.
sure.
And then when they brought him back into that space, he realized... Because what I liked was that he didn't have an awareness that he had been a soul.
Mm.
He didn't know because he was just so focused in on his... What could have been a consumption
so there's that
or
role,
depression.
but then there was...
Oh, you're talking about the zone, how
Yeah.
people who are focused on their art or their craft and they're so beautifully in it, their souls are free. But in the same place, there are lost souls who are just people who have lost.
Also, I loved the character of the guy who went and searched for the souls. And I loved that he wasn't a guru. He was just a dude who spun signs, and that was his way to get into that area. That was his meditation. I loved that.
Played by Graham Norton.
Yeah.
It was Graham Norton.
He was, yeah.
I thought I recognised the voice.
Lots of British voice actors did work on this.
Richard AO80.
Oh my god.
And
I'm
Rachel House.
happy. Yeah.
Who's
From
that?
Hunt for the Wilder People. No Child Left Behind.
I haven't seen that.
Oh,
Alas.
Topaz in Thor Ragnarok. Grandmaster's guard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
As Terry, Terry did it.
So funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really, really liked... I loved the variation in the voice cast. I thought that was really good and it really showed what they were trying to convey.
And lots of people of colour as well, which is really cool.
I mean, a lot of the film was based around Joe's experience as a person of colour in something that he enjoyed and with his family and it wasn't like, this is a person of colour, this is what their life looks like.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like that. It was like, this is just a community where they happen to be people of colour.
It was
This is
very
the kind of things they
positive
wanna
and
do.
joyous. I
Yeah.
felt, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was real too.
Yeah.
Tina Fey was so good.
Who was she?
Tina Fey was 22.
Yeah.
The grating
right.
female voice that
Okay.
that they chose to have, that was Tina.
That's funny.
And it's funny how they've got Amy Poehler in Inside Out as like another sort of embodiment of something, an abstract.
But also
concept.
being something grating as well.
Yes.
Being Joy, who's incredibly grating. It's like
Yeah.
the two of them knew. The two of them were ready. They were like, okay, we got to do a Disney film, but what one?
Yeah. I definitely think this is my favourite Pixar film since probably Ratatouille.
Fair.
I think I sort of got too old by the time all the other ones came around.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what
Yeah.
what happens.
I mean, the beginning with Up, I think I might have actually said this in the front of the episode with Josh, but with Up, people only really remember the first 10, 15 minutes of that. They don't remember the rest.
The opening
Really?
montage of
I suppose I'm a nerd, so...
Yeah, I mean, like, of course we can say, like, oh, there's the snipe hunt, and, he meets his idol, who turns out to be a bit of a...
But yeah,
Who
the
is
first
named
thing you
after
think,
Walt Disney's...
first thing you think of with Up, more than the house with the balloons, I'd say you think of Carl and Ellie's life with the piano music.
Yeah, and all the emotional moments, like with Toy Story 3, which people really grapple onto, as opposed to the other stuff. And, I mean, people overlook Monsters University because it doesn't have that same hook to it.
Yeah, whereas
Well,
Monsters,
Monsters
Inc.
U is
does.
good, but
Is it?
it's not that good. It's a fun film, and that's about the extent of it. But, like, yeah, you think about all the not that one. You think about all the Pixar films, and you think about what defines them, and what's the memory that you come out of that with, and what's the point in the film that you remember. And you're right. It's like, first 15 minutes with Ellie and Carl, or the scene with the imaginary
Bong.
friend, Bing Bong.
Right, yeah.
The scene with Bing Bong. A lot of people think of that scene. And like Ratatouille, which scene do you think of in Ratatouille? The one where,
Where
they all actually...
when
he eats the ratatouille.
Yeah.
It's like all those really emotional beats, and, a lot of the time it's the tragic bits.
I think with Up, you've got something that is just so strong, that opening, that it really does overshadow the rest of the film. I mean, when you're watching it, you sort of go like, oh yeah, we've got this context, we've now emotionally invested in this character, and to see, the story play out. But that's the bit that really sticks in the general consciousness.
It's almost like it was too well done.
Yeah. Whereas, other films like, I guess, Toy Story 2, again, people always remember the scene with Jessie and
Yeah.
the song, but people also remember the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And same for Ratatouille, and same for Monsters Inc. and The Incredibles and Finding Nemo. and all
Bug's
that.
Life.
Bug's Life, yes.
I wouldn't say there's any of those big emotional moments in Soul. I'd say Soul is one of the most... Well, all Pixar films are thoughtful, but perhaps the most philosophical. I think the main messages of Soul, the main messages that I took from it were we're all part of something greater, which is... Everyone says that all the time, but I really felt it from this film. And you can't experience life from a distance. So, like, you know, in the film, obviously 22 has never lived life, and they've been told about life for billions of years, but they just haven't tried it. Whereas when they finally go to Earth and live in a body for a day, they find out what life is. In the real world, that could apply to people who just haven't taken a leap of faith yet and pursued anything. And I feel like I'm that person sometimes, and the film kind of inspired me a bit.
Final thoughts?
Those were my final thoughts.
I think Soul was a really, really solid Pixar film. I think I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it more than Inside Out. I liked Inside Out. I think my favourite new generation original Pixar film is Coco. And I think this comes a very close second, because they're very similar. But Coco to me, I don't know why I had more of a connection to it, but I did. But this one is very, very close, and I liked how they did basically everything. It didn't have anything that I sat there going, not really, or this doesn't really represent anything. And especially at the times that we've got at the moment where everyone is so divided, it was a really good way to not have, you know, religion, politics, anything like that. It's just showing people in their togetherness, no matter who they are. And I really liked that.
That's it for today's show. We'll be back next week with a review of Doctor Who's New Year's special. I'm Royce.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Holly.
And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.